Bon Jovi. So good. Hello, hello. Okay. Lean in. Gather close. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics today. One of my biggest revelations that I have had over the last 2 years, and it keeps coming back to this one topic. And for me, it's responsibility. I have to talk about this today. And I hope by the end, you'll see why this could be one of the most important topics that we ever discuss as we move through our journey of just being more aware humans, right? Because far too often, because we're living from the outside in, right? We're constantly living by what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch versus from the inside out, right? Because we're living from the outside in, we have conditioned ourselves to either take on unnecessarily the responsibility of others, right? Or in the process, take zero responsibility for our own lives, right? We have such great expectations of my employer needs to do this, the government needs to do this, you know, that person needs to do this person should have done this. We should all over ourselves, right? Or we look at these other humans that are just brave enough to step up and be leaders today. And we have all these expectations of them. But then we don't take a look in the mirror and take responsibility for our own lives. And I get it, because you know what? That was totally me. Absolutely. Right? But could you imagine if everybody stopped blaming others or looking to others for the answer and just owned their own story and did something every day to move themselves forward? Could you imagine what humanity would look like even a year from now? It'd be a game changer, right? What if we owned the fact that we have attracted in every single aspect of our lives up until now, the good and the bad? And I get it. I hear all the time, Dylan, there's no way that I attracted in ... You fill in the blanks. But you did. What would it look like if you owned it? Right? What if we all just owned our stories? My life has been rainbows, but I own it. It's mine. It's mine. It's made me who I am. Right? Owning the fact that we've attracted everything in, and that is up to us alone. You're not in this alone, but you have to do it by yourself. Okay? Decide what you want for your future, what you want for yourself moving forward. And I love this quote. Albert Einstein, kind of a brilliant dude. He said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Have you ever seen me whip out that stick person, right? Your conscious mind is the gift, and your subconscious mind, or your subconscious mind is the gift. Your habits, right? So it controls everything. And your conscious mind is what we reward, right? This is your rational mind. We see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and we try to do everything from it, right? We have this wonderful gift of an intellectual mind, and yet we limit ourselves. We don't own where we've come from. We don't decide where we're going, right? And our senses are brilliant. I'm so grateful that I can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Don't get me wrong. So grateful for that. But I can be grateful for that and trust my inner knowing, right? Instead of limiting myself to just receiving information from the outside in, right? And stop being controlled by our senses. What would that look like? Right? And my mentor, Bob Proctor, he talks a lot about this and how we live so much of our lives through our five senses rather than working on and developing our intuition. And we talk a lot about, like, a whole unit in Thinking into Results is on our higher mental faculties and how to use them to get you what you want. This is where it all was introduced to me. Like, Thinking into Results was the game changer, right? And I continue to study it. And the more I have stopped being controlled by my five senses and instead learn to develop and rely more on my mental faculties, it continues to train me to live from the inside out. Okay? Versus the way I've been conditioned to take in everything and be just wound so tight all the time, right? And it's this new level of responsibility for all of it, and it's changed my life. Knowing that and taking responsibility for the fact that I've attracted in everything, right? And growing my responsibility mindset. And this basically just means, like, being in alignment with the idea that we're all connected, while also owning my own growth so that me as an individual can positively impact humanity, right? If I know we're all connected as humans, right? It's not up to me to try to change other humans or blame other humans. I need to look at myself, grow myself to the highest version of myself, stay in my own lane, and just move forward, right? Doing the work on ourselves, in our workplaces, in our communities, to develop a responsibility mindset. It's not hard, but it does take commitment, and it takes a decision, like every single day, a decision. And there's a brilliant article by Bob Proctor on responsibility. And I want to go through it and I want to dissect it with you guys because I couldn't have nailed it better myself. Okay? So I'm going to go back and forth between him and dissecting. So he says, responsibility is a choice. I often refer to it as being the key to freedom. Your future can be everything you've ever dreamed about and then some. You have the talent and tools to experience one beautiful day after another. That is, in fact, what I believe the architect of our universe had in mind when you were created. If that was not so, you would have never been endowed with such awesome powers. If you are given, so your awesome powers are your higher faculties, your imagination, your will, right? Like there's 6 of them, in fact, okay? You're given these awesome higher powers and desire. What if you truly believed that you would not be given a desire unless you were meant to fulfill it? Instead of like having like a down, I call them downloads, like you know that like zing, it's like a little buzz you get through your whole being and you go, oh, that would be cool if, like, that would be really cool if I did that, or I talked to that person, or I had that experience, or right? Whenever you get those, it's because you're meant to do something with it. It's because you can. You're just blinded by all the crap, the noise that's going on outside of you. And he talks about his mentor, Val Vanderwall, who wrote, when a person takes responsibility for their life and the results that they're obtaining, they will cease to blame others as the cause of their results. Since you cannot change other people, blame is inappropriate. Blaming others causes a person to remain bound in a prison of their own making. When you take responsibility, blame is eliminated and you're free to grow. This is where I spent years of my life. Okay? And let me know if you're with me on this one. Okay? I had all the reasons on why it was everybody else's fault. Why I wasn't getting the results that I wanted in my life. I was really good at blaming other people. And like holding grudges, right? It was this circumstance or that or whatever, right? I even, for me, chose to go to school for social work and was like committed to helping others dissect and dive into their lives so that we could dive deep into their past and figure out why they felt like crap today. That wasn't really the reason I said I went, but that's like when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I want to help others like dig into their past and like move forward. But then I realized it's not about our past. It's kind of done and over with. You can't do anything about it. Right? And that's not a like leave it there and forget. I'm not saying forget that it happened. I'm saying learn from it, grow from it, and move on. Right? It's about your future. If you're constantly building a tent in the past, blaming others for what happened, if you didn't have an experience that you wanted, it was for a reason. Trust that. And if you really want that experience, set yourself up to get it again in the future. Right? But the more we focus on the past and living in blame, the more we're bound in our own prison. Right? And being free is just like so much better. Right? So then he goes on to say, those who haven't taken responsibility for their results and their life often find themselves in a mental prison. And in many ways, a mental prison is much worse place to live than a federal prison or penitentiary. Mental torment can destroy just about everything, and it's everything that is necessary for a meaningful life. Self-image, self-respect, relationships, and a host of other attributes. It will even cause a person's physical health to deteriorate. And this could not be more true. And you guys have seen me whip out the stick person. Okay? We all know someone, and it might be you. Okay? Talking to you then. We all know someone living in their own mental prison. And it starts in the conscious mind. So here's our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. The law of polarity says everything has a negative and a positive. On the negative side, this is where your mental prison starts. And it starts in the conscious mind as ignorance. And ignorance turns to fear. When you don't know, ignorance just means not knowing, right? Ignorance in the conscious mind turns to fear in the subconscious mind. This is what we set up our feeling. And our feeling, that's just the word us humans use to tell what vibration we're in, right? So my feeling of fear is then going to set up a vibration in my body. There's all those little vibrations. And this is the mental prison. Because guess how it shows up in the body? Anxiety. Because we suppress it. Nobody expresses anxiety. When you suppress it, it turns into depression, which turns into disintegration. So you tell me someone that is living in their own mental prison, and I bet they are full of pain, like physical pain in their body, inflammation. In healthcare, we call it chronic pain. But it's like a lot of it is brought on by the mental prison, right? Like Bob says, it causes a person's physical health to deteriorate. Because if you are not creating, which is the positive polarity, you are disintegrating. Okay? He goes on to say, responsibility opens the door and permits you to walk into freedom. If you find yourself confined to such a mental state, understand there's a way out. Escape is encouraged and possible. The master key that fits the lock is clearly marked and within everybody's reach. It's called responsibility. So hang on with me for a sec, okay? We'll get there. This is so good. I want you to know that if you are stuck in this mental prison right now, or if someone you love is stuck in this mental prison, there is a way out. And responsibility is the key. And he says, I think it would be a fair comment to say that the person we have the greatest respect for are those who have accepted responsibility for every aspect of their lives. These individuals rarely duck responsibility by blaming someone else. When faced with an unfavorable situation, they are usually aware they have attracted the negative circumstance and know everything happens for a reason. When this happens, they merely learn their lesson and keep reaching out above and beyond the new frontier, taking responsibility for whatever happens every step of the way. When a person refuses to accept responsibility for their life, they reject their uniqueness and they turn all of their special powers over to other people, to situations and circumstances. They are then no longer in control of their future. They will be hoping something good will happen, but because of their past experience, they will be likely to expect something they do not want to happen. When you accept responsibility for your life and the results, which you alone determine, you will develop confidence that your dreams can be realized, that your plans can be carried out. Awareness is magnificent truth, is one of the greatest, if not the greatest thing that can happen to your life. It's Aladdin's lamp, a magic wand, the tooth fairy, all wrapped into one. When you are not taking responsibility for your life, I love that he says you are rejecting your uniqueness and you're turning over all of your special powers to other people. You are here and designed for greatness. You are not meant to be like everybody else. You are meant to be like you, to rock life, to rock your purpose in only the way that you can. First, you have to find your purpose. And you do that by looking in and saying, like, what do I love? What am I good at? Because you are so unique. You might look like one of your parents, but you're not them. You may have been programmed by one of your parents, but you're not them. You're you. And you get to be you. How cool is that? But you have to step in and you have to say, okay, this is my story over here, but I'm not going that way. So I'm not going to live back there anymore. I'm moving forward. And I'm going to take all of my uniqueness. I'm going to go rock it. He says, Dr. Rollo May, who's a psychiatrist, once wrote, the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice. It's conformity. It requires great courage to take responsibility for your life. It's so much easier to blame someone else or something outside of you. And George Bernard Shaw said, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstance. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look out for their own circumstance. And if they can't find it, they make it. And this is where that is so true. Those who win big in life take responsibility for their life, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. They don't pretend, I'm not telling you nothing bad is going to happen, but nothing really is good or bad. It's what you make of it. Everything. And even the pain that you've attracted into your life is there for a reason. Don't waste it. You have to take responsibility for that and then use it to create your destiny, whatever you're wanting in life. So in it, it says early on, it was suggested that responsibility brings with it a certain amount of freedom. For some, these last few paragraphs may be life altering. And with proper understanding, I guarantee it has the power to free you of unnecessary mental weight that you may have been carrying around with you all of your life. The concept of which I'm referring to has been misunderstood by many and has probably single-handedly ruined more lives than one can possibly imagine. Ignorance of this principle will most certainly cause a person to experience the destructive emotions of anger, guilt, and resentment. And here it is. There's a vast difference between being responsible for and be responsible to. It seems so simple, but I don't want you to let its apparent simplicity fool you. I'm going to repeat it again. There's a big difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. And even it's not uncommon for parents to blame themselves and assume responsibility for something that happened to their child, and their child might be 40 years old. Right? My kids are 6 and 8 right now. I am responsible to and for them. But there will come a point in the next 10 years, no more. You decide. 16, you let them start, they're out. They leave the house and you say, make good choices, right? Or as my mom would have said, I trust you. Ugh, I can still hear it, right? 18, maybe, but for sure, 18, you're an adult legally, okay? You are no longer responsible to or for your kids. They F up, you can love them through it, but it's not for you to own, right? But you hear parents or anybody, right, say, if we only would have, or I should have, right? But he says far too often we inappropriately assume responsibility for something when in fact our real duty to the person ended 20 years ago. Unfortunately for most, they carry that baggage around with them for life, never realizing that they have a choice. The correct interpretation of this is you are responsible for your feelings and your results, not another person's. You may be responsible to another person for one thing or another, but not for another person. The exception, of course, is when you choose to take responsibility on raising children, right? Until they reach a certain age of maturity. In that case, you are both responsible to and for, until such a time that they can be responsible for themselves. But it's not past the age of 18. Okay? And I get it. You're going to Lynn, it's easy for you to say. You get to still be responsible to and for your kids. I get that. But it'd also be a really cool day when I can look back at them and say, fly, fly, little birdies, right? That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to grow and evolve and fly. So ask yourself, are you feeling responsible for somebody or to somebody? Even my husband. I'm responsible to him. We've decided to do life together, but I'm not responsible for him. He gets to make his own choices, his own decisions. We've made goals together, but we also have goals that are separate from one another. We have our own hobbies separate from one another. We do lots of things together. We do lots of things as a family, right? But I'm not responsible for him, for his growth, for his success, for his whatever. right? And I can't own it. Even some of my best friends. I can say I love you and not own all your shit. Right? Because when you start taking on everybody else's stuff, you start veering out of your own lane. It's a distraction, it's noise. And it doesn't mean you don't care. You can care and stay in your own lane and grow yourself because you've got your own stuff. He says, I've never witnessed anything positive that has come from the misuse of responsibility. When you take on the responsibility for another person's feelings, results, or actions, you destroy their self-reliance and self-respect. And again, we all know people that are living somebody else, relying on them maybe for shelter. Like my oldest daughter's convinced she's going to live in my basement forever. I'm like, no, you're not. I don't want you relying on me. I want you off living your life, right? Or if they're relying on me financially, emotionally, all of these things you can find within yourself. And this isn't like I can do my own thing. UOMAN. Let me say it again. This is just a human thing. There's lots of men that are self-reliant on other people. But when you let someone lean on you to live their life, you are literally robbing them. Stop it. It's not serving you and it's not serving them, despite the control that you might like to get out of it. You are responsible for all the results in your life, and they're responsible for all the results in theirs. You are responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for your health. You are responsible for your wealth. You are responsible for your emotional state. Regardless of what has happened in the past, the future lies ahead. And it's like this open slate, just waiting for you to say, like, I'm here. I'm ready to take responsibility for my freaking life. And Bob quotes Winston Churchill, who he says certainly knew a thing or two about responsibility. And he said, responsibility is the price of greatness. This is so powerful. We have to understand how powerful taking responsibility actually is. And Bob gives an awesome affirmation that I want to share with you guys. Okay? It says, I'm responsible for my life, for my feelings, for my personal growth, and every result that I get. Say that to yourself. Remind yourself. No more blaming. No one can make you feel anything. You decide. You mess up, own it, learn from it, and move on. Simple steps. I didn't say they were easy. I said they were simple. But our thoughts set up our feelings set up our vibration, and our vibration sets up our actions. At no point did you hear me say it sets up someone else's vibration and someone else's actions. We do it for ourselves. They do it for themselves. And if we all take responsibility for our own vibration, if we all just stay in our own lane, if I take responsibility for my vibration, you take responsibility for your vibration, we come together as humanity because we're all energy, as a collective. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? And we just rock, but we're all rocking it in our own way. We're not competing, we're creating with each other. Oh, like mind blowing, right? Are you feeling me on this? It's so good. This whole topic is like just mind blowing to me. I want to leave you guys there. And I want you to really let that like steepen. Okay. And I want you to look at how can you start taking responsibility for your life. And if you catch yourself blaming, again, whether it's your workplace or the government or your spouse or whatever, it's not up to them to live your life. It's up to you. I want you to go look in the mirror. And I want you to say, I'm responsible for my life and my results. And you just have to break the habit, right? Because right now it's just habit. It's so much easier to blame other people and other circumstances and other whatever for what's going on in your life. It has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. So good, right? I love it. Love it.